Hello everyone, welcome to the Gunpla Network. As always, I'm The Spicer, and this is a new series called Otaku Go. While I count myself as a pretty big Gundam fan, I have a lot of different interests and hobbies. One of my newer hobbies would be collecting figurines, and, well, to start myself off, I picked up Mash and Ritsuka from Fate Grand Order, as well as Yuno from Black Clover. Our main man behind the scenes, Danik, helped point me in the right direction as he's also been collecting figurines for a while, and we thought it'd be fun to share our journey into this hobby with all of you. So today you're getting a twofer. We're taking a look at two separate figures that come from the same background. We'll be taking a look at the SEGA Super Premium figure, Ritsuka Fujimaru and Mash Kyrielight from Fate Grand Order. Now, in particular, these versions are from Fate Grand Order Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia, the full-length anime series based on the mobile game Fate Grand Order. So yes, these characters originate from the mobile game, the gacha game, whatever you want to call it, but generally speaking, now they're, I guess, canon Fate lore. With all the games and stuff, I'm not really sure how the canon and Fate works, but they do show up on screen in multiple movies and a full-length series. Now, the Fate franchise is about as large and confusing as Gundam is for newcomers, so instead of trying to explain all of it, I'm really just going to focus on the particular branch that Mash and Ritsuka come from in Fate Grand Order. Yes, the mobile game that has now 3 movies and a full-length anime series, they come from the full-length anime series as one of the arcs from the mobile game. This being the last big arc, if I'm correct, in the Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia arc. Now, there are differences in this to the rest of at least the animated Fate stories, in the fact that there's really not a Holy Grail war, it's just they're going back to try to stop Holy Grails from ruining timelines and stuff. And Mash isn't really a heroic spirit necessarily, and she's also a new class, so the Fate Grand Order takes a few steps away from your regular Fate Stay Night, Fate Zero, or Fate Extra style stories. Now, that being said, she is a demi-servant, so she does have the powers of one Sir Galahad from the Round Table of Arthurian legend. She's also a new class and a shielder class, meaning she's really strong defensively, but doesn't have as many offensive options as any of the other classes for the most part. She is very physically capable in swinging the big shield as a weapon or kicking off of it or doing cool stuff. And she does have some magic as well as her noble phantasm, so she has some abilities, just more defensively suited versus being a really offensive like Saber or Lancer class. Now, along with Mash, we're also taking a look at Ritsuka Fujimaru, who is her mage master. But Ritsuka doesn't do a lot, unfortunately, in the story. He's very the power of friendship bro, so he doesn't have like a lot of cool accessories or magic stuff he does, although he is technically kind of like a low-class mage. Usually in Fate, when there's a master who isn't very adept at magic, like Shiro, he's good with a sword or he's got something else going on, but we never really get to see Ritsuka use a lot of magic in any other form other than, I think, just boosting the abilities of Mash. But that being said, they make a great pair and they do look good together in terms of designs. While I'm not a big box person myself, I can appreciate the good art on these boxes. They are nice looking and they do match, so if you did want to use them for your display, they wouldn't feel out of place necessarily. Now, they are pretty sturdy cardboard, which is nice. They're not super flimsy or anything of that nature. The design on Mash looks really good. It's very clean, it's very minimalisty looking. It's not super busy. You have a good shot of Mash on the front. It gets carried across the side as well. I will say, now that I'm kind of looking at it, it does look like maybe some of the shield parts look a little different on the box. But we'll take a look at the shield once we get to the actual plastic. But it looks good. I mean, everything is consistent. The back does have the little instructions on how to put it together. It's not super complex, especially compared to Gunpla, but it is nice that it's on the box. I actually prefer this than having like a little thin paper manual or anything. This, I think, just makes way more sense. A lot of Japanese stuff. There's the Sega Plaza.jp website and QR code if you want to mess with that, I guess. And the top of the box looks quite nice as well. Now, Ritsuka's is a much thinner box because, as I said, he doesn't have a lot going on. But he does carry across the same kind of design scheme, just with a dark gray instead of white. The lines are what looks to be a very fine white line with some more, I'd say, brightly colored gold accents on the box. We of course have the Sega and Super Premium logos as well. Go across to the side of the box, same thing, get a full figure picture of Ritsuka, and it looks good. There's not a lot to say, honestly. Ritsuka's just looking like Ritsuka. The back of the box, kind of the same deal, honestly. There's not a lot going on here. A lot of Japanese that I'm sure if you got this in Japan would be useful, but here in the States, not as much. Then, of course, on the top of the box, we have some nice detailing here and there. And, of course, we're all here for what's in the box, of course. And once we actually get Mash out of the box, pretty pleased. Just Mash as a figure herself looks pretty good. There are a few nitpicky things I will say, but generally speaking, overall, the sculpts, the paintwork, and the face sculpt itself work pretty well. Faces can get real wonky on these kind of things. I've seen from just different pictures, and other friends have gotten figures in the past. But this one looks good. Pretty pleased with it. The different colors of purple play off each other very nicely. I will say the arms have the minor issue that the right arm has extra black on it instead of just following the curve of the cut of the light purple. Not a big deal, but it is noticeable when you're looking at both arms. However, the left arm on mine is bent up a little bit, so there's a little gap between the skin tone and the actual glove portion. All that being said, the armor looks phenomenal. This is her stage 2 look instead of her stage 1, so more armor, but no sword, and no kind of capey looking thing. So, yeah, it's a good in-between look, and it's how she looks in the arc from the anime, so it's exactly what you'd expect. The light purple works well on the accents for the legs, as well as down on the heels. Very pleased with that. The armor on the wrist looks good, the color armor looks good. I wish they would have put a little more kind of shading in the hair, but it's not a huge deal, honestly. Now across the back, looks really good as well. There's not as much paint detailing back here, but it's the back of the figure, and honestly, the design itself doesn't have a lot of light purple in the back that I can think of, so not too big a deal. The shield does look phenomenal, though. This is, I would say, the biggest selling point of this figurine, is the shield is big, but still proportionally accurate. And, well, I would have liked to have seen the outer rim of the main disc and all that kind of dark paint be plastic. It's fine that it's paint, it looks okay, and it's not the end of the world. That being said, the paint application on both the figure and the shield looks great. There's not a lot of scuffing, there's not a lot of paint bleed, everything's pretty spot on and very clean looking. Especially the little crests, insignias, if you will, on the shield that are silver and purple, which are both painted in a nice color themselves. Now, taking a look at Ritsuka, because there's not a lot to look at Fujimaru, honestly. I will have to say this one actually had some paint issues, but also some better paint application. MASH didn't really have issues so much as just there wasn't as much shading as I'd have liked, especially on the hair and the armor. But the scarf on Fujimaru looks great. They actually did a really good job on shading it, which is weird, but go off, SEGA. The white line on the coat, the little kind of edge, I guess, the hem of the coat, if you will, not as good. It's hard to show on camera and in pictures. I've tried my best, but it's not consistently painted. So with something that's being painted in very light color or with white, if you don't coat it enough, it will just look very translucent in a way. And you do see kind of the gray plastic underneath. but it's not all the way through, so it wasn't intentional. They're just different splotches of paint that it's like all white and then a little bit of see-through, or not see-through, but just a much lower opacity on the paint, if you will. That being said, the paint work on the little crest on his chest, as well as the seals on his hand, phenomenal. The red paint on his hand looks great, and it is super clean, not a lot of paint and bleed, not a lot of chipping, exactly where it needs to be. Now, as far as the rest of Fujimaru, there's not a whole lot to say. His pants look fine, his shoes look fine, the stand looks fine. Once you get them on a stand together or displayed together, they look really good. They're designed to, and they're following very anime-accurate designs. They're going to match as they would in the anime. Now, Ritsuka here is a little bit taller just because his stand is on top of Mash's. Kind of had to do that in order to get them both on the same stand without having weight issues of them like toppling over. But even his stand is actually a little taller, which I find odd. But generally speaking, they're pretty in scale. You can tell his arms are not that much bigger. His legs are actually a little bit smaller than Mash's. And head-wise, they're about the same. So generally, they're in scale with each other. He does look a little big, but I'm pretty sure that's still screen accurate for most shots. Of course, there's going to be some weird animation foibles here and there, but generally speaking, they look fine. So really, if you're going to get one of these, I wouldn't say you have to pick up both at the same time, or really that you need Ritsuka, but I think he's a nice little addition to Mash. He doesn't really do a lot. He's not incredibly visually stunning, but he does match, and he provides that extra little pop of color in that orange scarf to Mash. Now, if we're talking Mash, we have to talk servants, and the only other servant I have is a Banpresto DXF suit version saber from Fate Zero. And as you can see, scale's quite a bit smaller. This is pretty consistent with the Uno I have as well. The Banpresto figurines just feel a lot smaller comparatively, or I guess Sega feels much bigger depending on really just a preference. They both look good, they're both fairly equally detailed. Of course, in a suit there's not much to detail, but they look good. They're both good representations of their anime counterparts, and don't have a lot of foibles here and there, not a lot of scuffs, not a lot of paint inaccuracies. Just depends on how much room you really have to display any of these figurines. So of course, I would be remiss in not including any kind of Gunpla here for the Gunpla network, as we can generally assume that's what most of you are here for and what most of you collect or have in your collections. Here we have the Robot Damashi anime version of the RX-78-2 along with the entry grade, and for any 1/144 scale, this is generally what you're going to get. Some of the bigger high grades, of course, will size up better to something like this, but generally speaking, the vast majority of your high grades, entry grades, and real grades, and 1/144 to no grades, are going to be kind of dwarfed by the Sega premium figures. Of course, the Banpresto being a little smaller will kind of blend in a little bit more. It's still quite a bit bigger, especially for like being a human figure. It's going to be wildly out of scale, but you have an idea if that's primarily what you have in your collection, and if you like that kind of contrast, great. If you don't, at least you know ahead of time. Now, in terms of more Gunpla, of course, we have to take a look at something 1/100 scale, and I picked the Master Grade Dynamis from 2019. This was mostly not only due to the newness, it's kind of the newest Master Grade I've built, but it's also kind of has the same gimmick. It's got the armor plates on the front that kind of swivel around like a shield, so I thought it kind of matched up, at least tonally, with Mash. And as you can still see, it's a little smaller, but generally speaking, until you're getting into like the 1/60th perfect grades, you're not going to get anything that dwarfs this scale of a figure. It's really nice, it's really enjoyable to have both of these together, honestly. Like, I was really surprised how much I got a kick out of this for some reason. I don't really know why. They look really different, and they don't have any similarities, of course, but I don't know. I kind of liked having both of these together. I think they just kind of look cool individually, and they look cool together. But one thing that this does kind of give me a platform to talk about is why I kind of like figurines, and it's largely due to the fact that for most anime characters, a lot of the wild poses are really difficult to pull off with an action figure, so figurines kind of just pre-do that for you, which is great. My Figma Kill la Kill figures with Ryuko and Satsuki are horrendous to pose, and that's just me. I have a problem with posing in really cool, expressive fashion, but I think this is just going to be a huge boon for me going forward. Of course, let us know in the comments down below what other hobbies you guys have and what you think of these figurines, and if you'd like to see more videos like this. As always, I've been the Spicer. Please stay safe and keep on building.